being from South London, how did that impact you creatively? Specifically, like what films you wanted to make and the stories, you wanted to tell, where you drew your inspiration from?
Well, I mean, South London, I'm biased, I feel like has arguably some of the biggest people who have come from South London have tend to be the most creative and have shined a light on the city. So I think growing up in such a diverse part of the city and having so many cultural references, it definitely impacts the stories you want to tell and the films that you want to make. I think for me growing up, I didn't really see a lot of representation of myself, especially being Black British. I saw more representation more from like the African American shows and films that I used to watch. So I drew inspiration from that, but then also just mixing it with the society that I was growing up in.
That's so true, yeah. I think, sometimes, at least previously, that was a bit missing, but I think with people up and coming from South, I think that's changing now, which is amazing to see. You're Roehampton University alumni, and at LSA we get some of our previous year students to come back and impart some advice. What is your most valuable life lesson or takeaway from your time at university?
For me, it was don't go. I don't think university is really good for people who want to make it in the film and TV industry, because for me, when I was at university, it just became something interesting to study. I didn't learn anything about the industry. I didn't know how it was going to set me up. And they kind of gave you an unrealistic expectation as to what the industry is going to be like. But places like this set you up a lot better because you're able to actually develop the skills and mindset as to what it takes to work in the industry, especially when you get into it and you're thrown into becoming a freelancer. That is a culture shock because you don't know when you're going to get paid or when your next job's going to be. So I would say just keep creating and go to film schools instead, because that's where you're really going to utilize your platform more.
Thank you. I think, there's many people in this room that may be on the fence about going, so that was a really insightful answer. I think the glitz and glam of Hollywood is often what we see in the media when you see film. And it's not untrue, but for 90% of the people that are in the industry, that's not the reality. How do you manage your expectations versus reality in the industry?
That's a good question. I think the great thing about the industry is the perks of it. So you go into premieres and screenings and meeting other creatives like yourself, that's great. But most of it is just like a job like everything else. Yes, you enjoy doing it, but there's times where you don't want to do the job. You want to just lay in your bed all day. So it's learning about to differentiate when it's a job, when it's just enjoying it for what it is. And once you do that, you're able to kind of realize that there's more to life than just that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's very understandable. And you've been in the industry for almost a decade now. And that in itself is a success because this industry is cutthroat. And, some people, they don't make it because, they just can't handle and not for lack of trying, it's just they, decide to go other ways or whatever the reason may be. And you had a web series, Nate and Jamie, early on in your career that was critically acclaimed, that it was well received. How did that success, of the series, positively or negatively impact your mindset as you progressed?
I think sometimes when you start to get success, you start to think, okay, well, this should happen next. I saw a lot of my peers who were doing web series and they were able to get their show commissioned on TV, and that didn't happen to me. I started to doubt myself, or I stopped writing as well. That really was the last project I've written, and that ended 7 years ago. So it made me kind of step back and focus just on producing, because sometimes you have these expectations as to where your career is supposed to go, but sometimes it doesn't work out like that, and sometimes it's okay to just kind of adapt with the times or understand that certain things you do will get you in the room, but that doesn't mean that that project you've spent years on is going to be the one that takes your career to the next level.
Yeah, thank you so much. Some people have that imposter syndrome, or they compare themselves to their friends, and it's, I think just focus on yourself and do the best work you can. there's a common practice in the industry, at least when you're working for yourself, you know, you have to work next to like your real job, doing like the side gigs freelance. And as a freelancer, how do you handle slower periods, like without much work, and how does that impact your self-perception?
I think it's really difficult right now because the industry is really slow and is going through this weird change of like not enough films and TV shows are being produced in the same magnitude that they were just before COVID. So realistically, a lot of people have had to get work outside of the industry whilst fueling their passion or what else they want to do. So it really is about knowing how to be a hustler and knowing how to create multiple streams of income for yourself, and knowing that, you know, you can't just be fixated on one thing. Sometimes you just have to do what's going to get you to put food on the table, basically, and also just know how to come out of your comfort zone and use different skills that were able to keep you afloat.
Thank you. This February, you were awarded with the Ones to Watch 2025 award by Mainstream UK. Isn't that amazing, guys? That's amazing. And I would like to know how these kinds of accomplishments motivate you to continue on your journey as a creative.
It's great to receive awards. I think I was very shocked by that. I wasn't expecting it. I think I'm not motivated by awards. I think it's always good to get recognition for what you do. If you're chasing that, I think that's where you end up losing the passion of the art that you're trying to create. So it doesn't motivate me. I'm grateful for it, but what really motivates me is telling the stories that I want to tell, and that's what I'm going after. But it's also nice to get the benefits of all the hard work that you're putting into it.
I get that, yeah. I think, you know, some people, as I said, like, you chase the glitz and glam, but if you just focus on making films that you're proud of, then you'll be successful. And we all want a body of work to showcase our skills, no matter what department we're from, whether that's production, tech, anything. And because we want to document that growth, and it's difficult sometimes, and I want to know, what is your advice for having a healthy work-life balance?
Having a work-life balance is very difficult, especially if you're working full-time as a freelancer. Especially depending on your role, sometimes your whole job is just you being on set for like 12 plus hours a day. So you kind of have to learn when to prioritize yourself. So when you are a freelancer, you learn how to budget for yourself to be able to take time off and just live your life. I think sometimes we are chasing that dream and goal so much that we don't sit back and try to reflect and say, okay, yeah, let me live my life, let me travel, let me get a house, let me get married, stuff like that. I think that's really difficult. I think for myself, I've taken breaks multiple times. Like in 2019, I was working on loads of stuff and it all just got cancelled for many different reasons, but I ended up traveling. I ended up having to like go to New York for a film festival that I got into. I was able to meet so many different people and network, and that inspired me creatively and helped change my perspective on where I wanted to take my career and myself. So sometimes taking time out is good for you even when you don't realize it's necessary.
Yeah, thank you. I think with F&Ps coming up, I think a lot of us need to hear that, just making sure that we take that time to prioritize ourselves before our work. And you produced Sunday Dinner, which we'll be watching shortly. And I enjoyed it as someone who understands the culture that the film is about. And I also enjoyed it as someone who wants to be a camera person. You know, the shots were visually interesting, and people of our complexion, we were well lit, which doesn't always happen. I would like to know what draws you to a project like this when producing.
I think for Sunday Dinner, the writer-director Monique Needham, she's Jamaican descent like myself, and so when she told me about the story, it was very relatable to not only me, but my culture, so I understood it. So I tend to be more drawn to stories that I can relate to, but if I like the story and I can see where it's going and I'm passionate about it too, then that's a bonus. I think when you are building a team, you have to have people around you who believe in the story, because when you have budget limitations or things go awry, if there's people who are passionate about it, they're going to want to make sure that it's successful.
Thank you. I think, especially like I said, with FFPs coming up, people are wanting to collaborate and just like get their hands on what they can in terms of, building that show reel. So that's really great advice. And as I'm saying, like LSA is a place where we all collaborate across the different departments, get experience in them, regardless of what our end goal is in the industry. And from a producer standpoint, because I know you wear many different hats, what are the traits that you look for in creatives of our age looking to shadow people like yourself?
I look for people who are passionate about what they want to do. I look for people who are driven and dedicated as well, and who are talented, and I get to see the potential of where they're going to go. I've mentored so many great people who are doing well now, and that's usually it. It's people who are committed and really want to succeed. So, I mean, as long as you're passionate and determined and don't get disheartened by, maybe missed opportunities, then that's the type of person I'm looking for to mentor as well.
I think everyone in this room is passionate, so, keep it up, and maybe you'll be working with Kashif in the future, guys. You've collaborated on many different projects over the years, writing, directing, and producing. And I want to know what you've learned from successfully completing a project with those particular roles.
I've learned, I think because I had so many budget limitations doing all that, sometimes I had to learn to wear multiple hats, which is difficult. But I would say when it comes to writing, I think it's learning to take constructive feedback, but also knowing when to believe in your story. So that can be a push and pull. I think also writing is key to see what's the gap in the market, to see what works and what doesn't, because I think we're in a space where people are yearning for original stories and they want to see something what's different. And so I think do a lot of research and see what's missing and see how you can merge all of your ideas into something that can stand out. I think with producing, it's really about creating great relationships with not only crew, but also companies like kit houses, knowing how to be personable, knowing how to make something out of nothing. I think being a director is knowing that you're the boss, but also knowing how to collaborate with other people and knowing how to be personable when it's talking to actors and your team, because that's what brings it all together. So hopefully that makes sense as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, time is on our side. So we're now going to watch your short film Sunday Dinner. But before we do, I'd just like for you to explain and give us an introduction into the film, tell the audience what it's about, and then we'll head into some audience questions after.
Okay, sure. So Sunday Dinner we shot that in 2023, and it won the M&M's film competition. So it got funded by M&M's The Chocolate and ended up on Amazon Prime, and it follows Maya, who is nervous to bring her girlfriend to Sunday dinner with her Jamaican family, and she's scared that they're going to scare her off. So yeah.
So when you have job offers, have you ever gotten 2 jobs at the exact same time?
If you don't tax the rich, they will grow.
And if so, how do you decide which job to do and which job not to do?
It depends on, if it's like a film, let's say if it's a film that I'm offered, right? And I've read the script or I've read the pitch deck and I really like it, then that's how I kind of decide if I want to do it. If it's maybe a commercial, I probably would just say yes because that's money. So it just depends on what you want to dedicate your time to. And for me, I can juggle multiple projects at the same time, but it just all depends on how you manage your time and being really, really organized. So yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to ask you, what was it like producing that? How did it go through the production process? Can you quickly walk me through that, please? Thank you.
Sure. It was difficult. That was a really tough project to make. The writer-director, Monique, was chosen like amongst 4 other people to create a concept trailer in November of 2022. And so we shot that, and then a room full of judges from like Warner Brothers, loads of top executives, then chose our trailer to make it into a full-fledged film. But the difficulty of working with like a PR company or a brand is that they don't know how film works. So they told us that they're going to give us the money in mid-January, but said everything needed to be signed off and ready for a premiere on the end of March. So we didn't have a script, we didn't have a cast, we didn't have anything ready, so we literally had to jump into things full on. So imagine trying to budget for a film with no script. So that's what I was trying to do, and so it was very chaotic. So we ended up doing pre-production within 3 weeks, and then shot it within a month, and then had a month in post-production. So that's how crazy it can be in this industry. Sometimes you don't have the luxury of prep and being able to take your time with it. Sometimes you just have to just get straight to it and try and pull off something great. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris. I just want to say, for the aspect ratio of the film, it was shot in 4:3, and the font has a very retro vibe. Why did you decide to go for a retro vibe for this project?
From what I remember with the director Monique, she really wanted it to have an old school feel, to kind of really represent what it was like growing up in her grandmother's house, being from like Jamaican culture and background. So she really wanted it to have that type of feel, and I feel like she matched it quite well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, what hobbies did you do like outside of your work, and how does it contribute to your like mental health?
That's a good question. I would say most of my hobbies are tied into the creative industry. So I am a content creator, so I also do lots of commentary in the industry and talk about Black British film and TV facts, because I feel like not a lot of people know the history of what's happened in the UK. I do sports as well, so I do a lot of running and athletics and badminton and stuff like that. So I just kind of do that really. I also have a podcast, so that's different to kind of what I do day to day, but it just helps fuel me in another way when the film industry is a lot. So yeah.
Thank you.